Declan, I noticed that Kevin McStay said in his piece this week, he said there's a clear sense after the strange concertina league that Kerry have closed the gap significantly on Dublin. Equally, they've moved into a different sphere than all the other contenders. They've moved ahead of Mayo, the county that bucked hardest against Dublin's supremacy throughout the last decade. And certainly they're operating on a different level to Donegal and Tyrone, the would-be contenders. Do you tend to go along with that?
Give me the chasing pack. So you've got Dublin, and then you Kerry, and who else is after that? Then Mayo.
Well, I suppose you're looking at Donegal, Tyrone, Mayo. Then there's probably a few other counties you could make a case for. I mean, just looking at the division.
Yeah, it's one of them ones that who have they been up against so far, right? It would have been interesting in a 7-team National League or an 8-team National League to see just how they might have fared against Donegal. Or I tell you what, like Kerry and Armagh might have been some ding dong, just in terms of attacking talent. And Kerry and Monaghan have always produced real humdingers. Like, so, without them being there, obviously they played out Dublin and Drew, and were just so vastly superior to Galway and Roscommon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's Galway and Roscommon they've beaten. Like, yes, they beat Tyrone. But, like, I mean, that's a Tyrone team that's kind of desperately fighting for its identity. I think that Donegal have their identity. Mayo may also be in that kind of twilight zone where they're not quite sure, especially without Killian there. Miles, like, it is probably like you have Dublin, right? And Kerry just slightly beneath them until they win. They can't be considered on a par. And it's almost like the rest of the chasing pack are in rag order. And that's not necessarily all their own fault. And some of that is down to just the way the cards have fallen, with the way that the structure of the leagues, the little preparation time, and it might have been all different in a normal year. But right now it just looks like you've carried Dublin, Kerry, and everyone else is miles behind.
Yeah, well, we did say coming into this show, and we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. If you want to get this retro Donegal jersey or any of the other ones, go to orgaretro.com, use the promo code OurGame, and you'll get 15% off. And also a reminder that if you want to get this on audio podcast, go to patreon.com/OurGame, and you'll get all the hurling and football show podcasts every month for a $5. So, Declan, let's just do the power rankings. We said we'd do it, so we might as well go ahead and do it. Dublin number 1, Kerry number 2. I'm actually wondering how much we're even going to debate this. It'll probably be when we get kind of further down in the top 10 here. We won't go through the entire 32 teams because we'll be here till next week. But Dublin, Kerry, are you still keeping Mayo at number 3, or are you putting Donegal ahead of them?
I'd be hopefully not showing minority bias here, but I think Donegal are just probably better set right now. And that's probably possibly informed by Mayo losing Killian. So I would say, like, when you said top 10, I didn't know we were rating them 1 to 10, but that's good crack.
Oh, yeah. I tell you why I'd be inclined to say maybe Mayo would still stay ahead. Like, Killian O'Connor, massive incalculable loss, but they're still going to have 15 on the field. And it's not like they're going to have like a coat hanger in the corner with a number 15 jersey on it. It is going to be a fairly good player. Whether it's a decisive player is another thing. But like Donegal have just come up short in big games in the last few years, where it's not getting through the Super 8s or even the Ulster final last year. Donegal have a habit of coming up short.
Yeah, and for various reasons, like, sort of like, I think it was Jimmy Brennan that started the season in 2019 like an absolute train, like, and was in all-star territory, and then just faded out as the games went on, and the air got a bit thinner. And, like, they've still got enough players coming through like that are, I wouldn't say unproven talents, but certainly lads that at some point over the last number of years they've come on the scene and someone says, Jesus, this is the next best thing. And by that I'm talking about the like of, say, for example, an Oisín Gallen. He came on against Dublin a few years ago, and everyone was like, holy God, this teenager that was tall, rangy, and very good with either foot. And then he comes along, like, and he's just had injuries and usual kind of growing pains some players just get, and doesn't quite get there in an early within his first 2 years, or whatever. So, no, I just look at that panel of players of Donegal and just think, you know what? There's a chance there for Bonner and Rashford to maybe Michael Murphy's injury presents him with an opportunity, right? Because the way I see it is, Michael Murphy turns 32 on the 4th of August, right? He's been sloughing about around the middle for a long, long time, like for the last decade, certainly since, because he wasn't really doing it under John Joe Doherty and Brian McCaver. He was always a forward, but when Jim came in, he was always sort of up around the middle with spells up top. With Rory Gallagher, he was certainly he very rarely got to go forward. Like, so I can kind of see if they reimagine it and say, right, let's have a midfield diamond here, right? Let's go with Hugh McFadden at the base of that diamond towards the defence. Let's go with Michael Langan here. Let's go with Jason McGee there. Let's go with Owen McNeilis at the top of that diamond at 11. And then you've got Michael Murphy and Paddy McBurty inside. I mean, I don't care what kind of ball comes in them, low down or high up. That could cause wreck, and that could surprise teams. And I just think that, like, you know, if Donegal are going to improve on previous years where they've won the Ulster title, then they're going to have to bring something different. I just think this is the gambit. If I was, I know Donegal are crying out for someone like me to come and manage them, but that would be the first thing I'd do, is as they call it, rehearse this in training over and over and over again. That formation, those players, and see how you go. Because Paul Brennan at 6 has been grand, good, but I just think for overall protection, to protect against the team and the breaks, that I think someone like Hugh McFadden there at 6 would be it'd be a game changer.
Yeah,
Brennan, wing then.
Yeah, we kind of ran through the Mayo team already when it was announced there today, but just some of the other players that we haven't really touched on in Donegal. Ryan McHugh, I mean, you could argue he's in the top 10 players in the country. Actually, you could probably argue very strongly. Michael Langan looks brilliant. Kieran Thompson looks like he's getting better all the time. McNeilish, if he's right. McBrearty, obviously, who you've mentioned. Oisin Gallen. Jamie Brennan, if he hits the ground running. I mean, Jamie Brennan a couple of years ago, I thought was Ulster Player of the Year, and it didn't happen for him then once they got into the Super 8s, I kind of felt. So
yeah, once they got through the Ulster, and then, you know, Donegal's problem at the back has been injuries and key players getting injured at the wrong time. Neil McGee, Mark Connor, McKenna completely out of it in Ballybuffet in the first half. He got injured himself, he had to come off. But to be honest, he kind of had McKenna's confidence drained by then. I'm not quite sure Conor McKenna's confidence has ever really recovered since then. Steve McManaman has picked up injuries. Owen McFadden Ferry's been away on duty with the Irish Army. I think if you had McGee, if you had a defence and you had McGee, McManaman, Bren McCole has shown himself to be pretty capable, and you had Owen McFadden Ferry, who's back now, and he could be a man marker, and you had Ryan McHugh, maybe Owen McHugh for the pace. Owen Ban Gallagher, like, I don't know where he is with injuries, whatever, but my God, like, if they could get there. Donegal have the best squad in Ulster by a mile. I just think they're by a mile. Far better than Tyrone.
Yeah, even with like Conor McKenna, or sorry, Cathal McShane coming back to fitness, I mean,
he's not. You know, I mean, he's not. If Cathal McShane was ready to play any football, you don't think he'd. You know, I mean, I just, God love the man, because he had a horrendous injury in February 2020, and, like, I mean, when lockdown came and all the good weather came, Sportsfile sent out photographers to take pictures of lads in their home gyms, and Cathal McShane was one, and he had built himself a fairly impressive looking set up in his own garage, and he looked to be, in those pictures, you know, not to be Joe Brawley and Dermot Connolly about it, but he was in magnificent shape. He was looking, you know, those pictures don't lie. Like, the man was absolutely a supreme athlete in those pictures. And then he had to have the bone or whatever it is. I'm not a doctor, but he had the injury reset, recast back into a cast. And then the word is then, you know, you fetch up then August, you know, maybe 8 months later, and it's like, he's not there. He's not going to be part of the matchday panel. And, like, obviously any manager, you're going to ask Fergal Logan, like, how is Cal McShane coming along? What do you think he's going to tell a reporter? He's not going to say, Cal McShane's really struggling badly here, boys. He's going to say he's going on the best. He's doing his recovery. and then people get carried away with that. He didn't play anything of the 4 games. And people who say, oh, once Cal McShane comes back, Cal McShane hasn't played any football in 15 months. Like, God love him, but I just cannot imagine any player coming back after it's closer to 17 months, coming back and being as good as they ever were.
Yeah, it'd be very hard to hit the ground running. Like, just a final play. I'm starting to go and come on board with you to have Donegal ahead of Mayo in the pecking order here, especially with all that talent they have. But Jason Doherty, he has been training well. This is according to James Horner, who spoke to yesterday. Brendan Harrison has been training well, played a bit of club as well. So maybe, you know, Diarmuid O'Connor, he's starting to push, so maybe he'll be back sooner rather than later as well. But you're fairly set on having Donegal number 3 and Mayo number 4? Do Mayo stay ahead of Tyrone with the loss of Cillian O'Connor? And the interesting thing as well, actually, while you're deliberating, is Mayo are one of these teams who tend to play up to the level of Dublin, but maybe down to the level of some of the other teams that they've played in qualifiers over the years. So,
ain't that the truth? Like, they really do. They struggle against all sorts. Like, Fermanagh in 16. Down in 2018, you could pick. Was it me then a couple of times?
Made hard work of Derry another time.
Oh yeah, Derry running them so close, like
Cork.
By God, like they just seriously find it hard to get their dander up for the games that they're expected to win.
Yeah, but do you think Mayo would beat Tyrone, beat Armagh? I expect they'd still beat Galway, Cork. I think they'd beat most of these teams even without Cillian O'Connor.
And where are you putting Monaghan, like, and all that?
Well,
because you know they have been hot and cold. When they're hot, like, and when everyone's there and Conor McManus is there and all the distraction of Banty and the training ban and so on, that's all taken out of the equation. Like, if they can get themselves right in the head, you know, the one thing about Monaghan, pace they have in the wings now is absolutely sensational. Like, it's just off the charts. And you know, I'm not so sure. Like, Conor McCarthy got that 3 goals in 21 minutes against Donegal, but he was well handled after that in other games. They're very unpredictable. But by God, like, when they're on song, you'd be maybe thinking top 6.
Yeah, even what Jack McCarran did.
All the numbers here.
Right, so do we want to keep Mayo at number 4? I'd be happy to keep them number 4.
Go on, because they're proven.
Yeah, they are proven. So then we're looking at a glut of teams like Armagh, Monaghan, Galway, Roscommon, maybe Cork. I don't think Kildare you could really put in here. Tyrone, of course, as well. Are we looking at Tyrone next, or would you be thinking Armagh or Monaghan would be ahead of them?
Well, you didn't mention Clare, and I would kind of consider them the 10th best team in Ireland.
Would you know? Well, we'll come back to the 10th in a moment here. I have made a note.
Let's fill up from there.
Well, what about between Armagh, Monaghan and Tyrone?
God,
could you throw a blanket over the lot of them? Is that what your reaction means?
No, definitely not. Because Armagh, look, if you're to look at it right and see from the outside, where's the optimism in these panels? And if you're to rank them in terms of optimism, you go Armagh, Monaghan, Tyrone. And you're only saying Tyrone because they got hosed by Kerry and Killarney. They still beat Armagh, you know, who you'd be saying, well, that's top of the chain there. Like, and also, it was a tough day for them in Killarney. But I just would be amazed if they didn't take an awful lot out of that. I'm not going to use the word learnings, but they learned a serious lesson that day. But, you know, it's hardy comes to hardy kind of stuff. When Tyrone played Monaghan in the preliminary round, what year was it now? 2018, Monaghan beat them in the rain. Conor McManus hit the point from over by the sideline in Omagh that day, you remember? But yeah, when they met in All-Ireland semi-final, that Tyrone team did enough. Like, and neither team has changed significantly. Dara Canavan's injury won't preclude him from having a part in the championship as long as they can go a wee bit further. It's not a season ender, but they need to be getting an Ulster final. They need to be beating Donegal. Well, they need to beat Cavan first, of course, but like then they need to be beating Donegal, and then you're going to meet the Munster finals, isn't it? So, oh my God, that's a pure confidence thing, and sometimes it comes down to this: how well do they perform in Championship? How well have they historically done? And Armagh have historically been very, very poor in the Championship. They have won 2 games against Down, and then last year against Derry. Both narrow wins. I think the Down game in 2019 came after extra time. And Derry were putting on a big push up there last year in the real brutal evening in Celtic Park, and just about fell over the line for all the quality they have. But with Kieran Donaghy there this year, there's something a little bit more added about it. Just a little bit more smarts. Like, Donaghy comes from that basketball tradition of like preparing for scenarios, and I think that there'll be a lot more on the line in terms of real-time decision making. What do you suggest, Tyrone?
Well, you see, I'm even just looking at the draw, which, that's part of it too. I mean, who's the better team the last few years? Who do you think would win if they played head-to-head? What do you project to happen this year? So on one side of the draw, Antrim are in there against Armagh, but you also have Monaghan and Fermanagh on that side. Then on the other side of the draw...
Well, there's 2 handy wins for Armagh and Monaghan.
Yeah, so you're thinking who's going to win between Armagh and Monaghan, and on the other side it's Tyrone, Cavan, and I based on Cavan's league, you'd have to make Tyrone favourites there, even though Tyrone's league was very much up and down. And on the other side of it, it's Down, Donegal, Derry, and Derry are improving as we talked about before, but I'd still give Donegal the nudge there. So then you're looking at Tyrone against Donegal, and I think I'd fancy Donegal to win that one again this year after doing it last year. So then you're down to Armagh, Monaghan. Who out of those 2 teams do you fancy to win? And I think I'd just about nudge for Monaghan, even though it just feels like there's a wave of optimism around Armagh, and I'm just wondering, is that bubble going to burst at some point?
I always find that there's optimism about when you're up here. When you're up here, Armagh are being consistently talked up. Stephen McDonald said a couple of years ago when it was maybe the week of them playing Down and Down beat them in Uri, was that they were playing Division 3 at the time. He says, but it's a Division 1 attack, and this kind of saying got a lot of traction and a lot of currency, and it was a clever point he was making. Like Jamie Clark and all was part of that attack, and I suppose it might have been Oisin O'Neill's first year. I can't quite recall. And he was possibly right in what he was saying, but on the day they absolutely stank the place out, and they couldn't wait to get out of Newry. There's been too many days like that with Armagh that leave you saying I can't really trust them. Like Calvin, even in the semi-final, in Clonus a couple of years ago. Around the middle they have a lot of decent players too, like Grimley, Jonathan Burns, that really suffering with the loss of Stephen Sheridan because he was a big figure for them. But I know you would, just proven track record and all that, you'd probably be heading for Monaghan over Armagh.
And would you be heading for Monaghan over Tyrone? That's tough.
Possibly.
Yeah, so I'd be happy then.
Right now, and I say that just because I know these people in Tyrone love me, and I love them, but you have to just look at it as being in terms of preparation time, and obviously Monaghan had more preparation time with Tyrone because they didn't stop.
So we have.
We don't know that, of course, but they were certainly.
We have a top 7 so far of Dublin, Kerry, Donegal, Mayo, Monaghan, Tyrone, Armagh. Now we're going to work in the likes of, well, you've already talked up Clare there, but we also have to look at the likes of Cork, Roscommon, Galway. Roscommon they've won titles in the last few years. Aren't they entitled to be up in this conversation?
Roscommon are in there.
And you put them ahead of Cork. I mean, Cork beat Kerry last year.
We talk about the drop-off in standard between Kerry, Dublin and the rest. There's probably an even more significant drop-off between the teams that we've named so far and the rest.
And what about Meath?
No.
No, I mean they got hockey
They're
last
just
year.
they're just they're just one of these counties, a bit like Down, a bit like everyone in Ulster, that just need a back door again. So if they get, at least not everything hinges on the one-off game and an inevitable defeat at some point to Dublin, and then everything's gone. Like, I mean, you just need more championship games and need that feeling of taking teams to the wire, as they did with Tyrone in 18. Like that's gone from them now for this year and last year, and that's just, it's actually incalculable, to use a word that Martin used earlier, damage to a lot of teams that like the back to the straight knockout, and I just fundamentally completely couldn't disagree any more than with the people who say this knockout is the best thing for Gaelic football.
If I remember correctly, didn't Meath beat Clare a couple of years ago in Portlaoise in a qualifier? I think they did, off the top of my head, because Meath went on to have a decent Super 8s run that year. And
Yes.
if Kerry and Dublin are number 1 and 2, and Clare are, look, you wish them the best this weekend, but we're going to assume that Kerry are going to win that game. But I think Dublin would beat Meath by far more than Kerry will beat Clare. I could be proven wrong on that. So that's why I find it tough to pick between those two, but I'd probably, just because of the heaviness of the beatings that Meath have faced, or that one that they had against Dublin last year, I might just put Clare ahead of them. But would you give Cork a shake here? I mean, they did beat Kerry last year, but they lost to Tipperary, and it feels like you can't necessarily trust them too much either. And now Kieran Sheehan's after retiring due to injury.
I'd be lying if I told you what I felt about Cork. Like, feels like they had been building a little bit, but I mean, oh God, like, talk about flattering to deceive in the Munster final last year. Like, talk about letting an opportunity slip. Like, my God. And
have they a Division 1 forward line? Brian Hurley, Mark Collins, this is assuming that they're all fit, Cathal O'Mahony, Rory Dean steaming in from the half forward line, Luke Connolly. They do have some very good forwards.
Yes. But, like, you recall Cork playing Tyrone and Portlaoise. Was it Portlaoise or was it Roscommon?
In the Super 8 game a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and just were, like, I think it was Roscommon, but they were beaten by an absolute avalanche of scores. Like, I mean, they were just so far off it. Like, it wasn't even, really, we are in throw a blanket over it.
Well, I'd make a case to put Roscommon. I'd make a case to make Roscommon number 8. Then, can you put Galway number 9 ahead of the likes of Clare, Meath, Kildare, those sort of teams? Would you put Galway in there just for talent?
Yeah, for talent. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Galway. And then 10, you're going to stick with Clare ahead of the likes of Meath.
And that's just
an
optimism thing. Like, that's just an optimism thing, and maybe due recognition for someone there.
Yeah, I'd be giving Cork the nudge ahead of Clare, though, at the same time.
Okay.
So there's our 10. And people, let us know what you think. Put it in the comments at some stage. Dublin, Kerry, Donegal, Mayo, Monaghan, Tyrone, Armagh, Roscommon, Galway and Cork. Happy enough?
Never happy.
Join the Our Game Supporters Club at Patreon for €5 per month to get audio podcasts of the Hurling and Football Show and much more exclusive material.